I'm Nick Hernandez, and you're listening to the Community Matters podcast. On the show, we talk with well-being researchers, people that are applying well-being into the world, educating directly about it, integrating it into organizations. Today, I have Becca Schusler on the program, and she is the Health and Wellness Director of Atlantic Packaging. This company has quite an interesting history, and I think your story is pretty interesting too, Becca. Uh, you tell us about you, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. I'm really excited to be on the podcast today. My story, I guess, I've always been very interested in how people tick and what makes us make the choices we make, especially towards our health and well-being. So that's what I studied in school, and I've been working the last 20 years in workplace well-being, where my main goal is to create systems and processes and workplaces that when you walk in the door, you can be healthy and you can thrive. And so it's just been a great journey to be part of, and I'm excited to continue to work, and especially for a company like Atlantic Packaging, to create that vision.
Thank you. There is a nature challenge that I've heard is taking place at your company. Tell us about that. How did that come about?
A few years ago, I read the book, The Nature Fix. And within that book, it had a prescription for nature. And that really just resonated with me. It was, 20 minutes a day of time outside. There was researched evidence of what it can do for your health: lowered blood pressure, lowered stress, improved creativity, all those things that we want for people. It also said that one time per month, being out in nature for 3 hours at least, and then one time per year, completely unplugging from the grid. And so I really thought, well, I want to bring this idea to Atlantic, the people at Atlantic, through our well-being program. We also, as a company, are very connected to nature. We're a packaging company, and with that comes a lot of cardboard and plastic, but we are trying to change that in the future. We're trying to create packaging that can be composted, that can be um, used again. And so we're really trying to connect with nature through what we do at Atlantic Packaging. And so it really was a great interconnectedness between our well-being program and the moves we're trying to make within healing and taking care of our earth. And so we created a nature challenge. We've done it now for 2 years. And what it is really is we encourage our employees to get out in nature 20 minutes a day. They track it on a form. We also have a wellness WebEx chat group that we have over about 150 people that are on it. And throughout the challenge, we share pictures of being out in nature. So we see, people's gardens, and we see people's sunsets on the beach, the beach. We see people hiking in the mountains. And our company is very spread out across the country. We have over 26 locations from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so it's been really a great way, not only for us to get out into nature, but to connect with each other across that grid. And we've had a huge, I guess, outpouring of participation in this challenge. People have really loved it and connected with it. And so it's become one of those mainstays that we'll have every year.
That's kind of cool. Um, Little tangent. There's a company in Lincoln. I don't know if it survived the pandemic, but they have a nature challenge that results in a little trip over to Colorado and hiking a 14,000-foot mountain as the the culminating trip of
Yes,
that. So
I know.
that kind of thing.
That's so interesting because that company, I forget their name, but I am familiar with them because their well-being
Mm,
program is one that I have known in my work as a work site well-being specialist. And that idea of that culminating event out in nature with the leadership, that piece of the connectivity of people and their leadership, is actually one that is replicated within the workplace as a best practice.
Cool.
Mhm.
I had heard that they made some of the best places to work lists.
Mhm.
And one of the little events that we did at one point was go on a tour of Lincoln of these nationally ranked best places to work. So this is great to hear external validation that it like word is getting out that there's
Yeah.
some cool things happening in Lincoln. I also hear there's cool things happening in Charlotte. What how do you guys engage with your community or the communities where you're rooted around the country?
How Atlantic engages with our communities?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We oftentimes, so part of our strategy is to encourage volunteerism. So our employees are able to volunteer in their community and get a raffle ticket in what we call our Healthy You project. So we really encourage people to get out in their communities. We also have people, they can get raffle tickets for what we call them Atlantic group activities. So getting out in the community with other Atlantic employees to create that social connectivity. So those are things that we're trying to apply across all of our locations, and really getting involved with the community, giving back. Our company has a long history of giving back to the communities that we serve, and also trying to connect with our people, just in general, your coworkers. I do think a little, the pandemic took a hit on connecting with your coworkers. And so being really mindful and intentional about creating those opportunities for employees is really important piece to their health.
Thank you for doing that. I think with uh, your workplace encourages that. Sometimes it's like this extra little nudge that it helps. It helps.
Yeah, it's an incentive, right? Or it's a permission, right? It's a permission that you're able to do this and your company believes in it, encourages you.
I like this idea that we all have strengths, and conceptually I've heard that for a long time. Personally, I did not really the memo didn't really get through until I took this strengths finder from the Gallup organization. I like to like dwell on that for a little bit on this program to help people that may be in a place where they're not seeing their strengths, or maybe they're have someone in their life that's not seeing their strengths. So there's a Don Clifton that was the creator of the Gallup Strengths Finder, was an advisor on this free resource, the VIA Survey of Character Strengths. You can try this at www.viacharacter.com. That stands for Values in Action. And it's a way to like kind of do, I think of it like a little inventory, and there's some of these character strengths, they're down deep, and the idea is when we focus on our top strengths that these are pre-embedded ways in which we find joy and meaning, and the ones that the ranking is internal to your own self, where you find the most joy and meaning. And it's, I think, kind of awesome. So there are these books that have, I really like the format of Gallup's survey itself for theirs, but I also like the VIA because it's free. So, and you did both. So thank you so much for playing along. On the Clifton strengths, I see you have strategic, learner, input, achiever, and ideation in your top five. And on the VIA, gratitude, love of learning, hope, forgiveness, and self regulation. Uh, what jumps out at you among those? And like, how do you see maybe a couple of those playing out through what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the via and the gratitude piece is probably what's guiding me most in my life right now and in my career is just that idea of being, every day waking up and being grateful for what I have and what we all collectively have. And then what does that look like in my daily routines with people, with my family? And I think that that lends to all these other things, right? If I have a gratitude to my life and to what's going on, I have a love of learning and I want to continue to be curious. I think that to me, like this, the love of learning is another one that stood out to me because I'm one of those people that loves to listen to podcasts. I love to read research. My husband jokes about it all the time. But I do think that curiosity and that love of learning is foundation, like is rooted because I'm grateful for that daily, that for waking up every day. And I think it lends to my love of helping other people live a healthier life because when you wake up feeling good, you want other people to feel that way too. And you also know that not everyone feels that way. And I'd like to spread that ability for people to believe in themselves, to be able to make changes in their life, but also for systems to be able to do that too and to support people. You know, our companies, how are they supporting people in their journey to living a healthier life? We know that it's not just an individual thing, right? It's where what we're born into, what we walk into every day, the systems that we function within, the habits that have been created over time. Those all influence our health and well-being. And I feel like that's probably that strategic part of me. I'm thinking systems all the time. Like, how can I make changes in that way? And so, yeah, I guess these really do, I feel like fit who I am. And I do, I really like the idea and kind of Nick, what you were talking about with these, knowing these strengths is for so long, or maybe not, other people had this experience, but I've had the experience where a lot of times you have to focus on your weaknesses and how to improve those. But I love the strengths focus, like that positivity focus. Like, why don't we focus on our strengths and really add to our lives and the lives of others and our communities with our strengths instead of focusing on where we lack? So I think that's a big piece, and that's I think one thing that draws me to this type of exercise, right? Looking at your strengths and looking how they can influence parts of your life and people in your life.
Yeah, yeah. One of the several things that have been done with the VIA, like they've used a correlation with some of the strengths and as demonstrated or narratively expressed in children's literature, and they're seeing that it's having positive impact on the social and emotional intelligence in very young people. And then here in Lincoln, one of the psychology professors had as grad students mentoring high school students that were seen as at risk of dropping out, and their focus was on the VIA. And I think from what I hear, they weren't always getting the message that they had strengths because that was not what adults and teachers were focusing on. So I think it's good for its own sake, and it can be a part of getting back on a path. That it's sort of like we have this uh I don't well finding our way, but then also like engaging in the world. Like we before the show, we were talking about this idea of self-determination theory as some core psychological needs, and it's our need to belong, our need for autonomy and being able to choose what we choose to pursue in life, and then developing mastery around skills that help us to pursue those things. And I think that sometimes everyone does what they find interesting in a way. And it's like being able to harmonize that and with our need to belong. And like some people, like, institutions and parents, like they're trying to keep us alive and educate us. So it's like, that may not be our center point, but so anyways, so I'm going down the rabbit hole. I've seen the strengths used in all sorts of ways, and yeah, thank you for sharing some of your reflections on it. Um, so yeah, so wellness,
Mhm.
physical wellness. other dimensions of wellness? Like how do you sort of conceptualize well-being in the workplace?
It's all interconnected. So there's not just, a lot of times people refer, the dimensions of well-being or the dimensions of wellness. And I really, you see them sometimes in a pie or in a circle, but in my mind, they're all interwoven, right? All of our dimensions of well-being, social, physical, emotional, spiritual, they're all part of who we are, and they all need nurturing. So in our workplace, it's a really important piece that our guiding principles for the well-being program interconnect all of those things. Because you never know what's going to be the impetus for someone to create change in their life. Someone might resonate with the physical side and make changes physically that then transcend into mental and emotional changes where they feel better about themselves. They're more confident. Then they join a walking group and then they have their social health. Right? So but maybe it's the other way around for someone. Maybe it's the social group that gets them to feel more confident about themselves to then start being more physically active. So for me, it's the point of entrance is going to be different for everyone. And what resonates or what they need at that time in their life is going to be different. So the programs and the systems we have at the company have to be prepared to support people at any of those entry points. So it's really important to us that we have a very well-rounded whole health approach to well-being.
That's awesome. Before the podcast, we were talking a little bit, and I understand that in some places there's a support group around chronic disease taking place there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so at our largest production facility in Tabor City, North Carolina, we have a on-site health center that's staffed by a nurse practitioner, and she holds group sessions, 4 of them a year. 2 are focused around diabetes, and 2 are focused around metabolic health. And these programs people can sign up for and register for. And they're held for a certain amount of weeks, and they're group educational and just sharing of experiences. And we've had overwhelming positive feedback from these. Engagement has been high. We have people who want to do them multiple times, and then we have people who become experts and then can share with others their knowledge, and they become friends, but also colleagues, and they have this, part that they share together, and it's really created a really cool uh, support network for people at our Tabor City location that might be part of these groups.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
I think friendship is the maximum. I'm a maximizer. That's one of my strengths.
Hmm.
In the social connectedness domain, one of my favorite quotes is friendship is the maximum of mutual love. So I see maybe at the entry point of positive social connectedness, some pleasant interaction with a stranger, barista, clerk, something, walking down the street. And then like that real the real deep end of friendship, there's some combination of these dynamics. This is my theory. We enjoy each other's company. We're there for each other. We bring out the best in each other. I think those are kind of like the 3 deep things. Um, so that's awesome when I hear you say people become friends.
Yeah.
Like it creates that kind of opportunity. So that's like the um for its own sake, and in Gallup's Q12, the question that on its own has the biggest impact on predicting employee engagement is, or the statement, and I think it rates how strongly people agree or disagree. I have a best friend at work.
Mm-hmm.
I always found that fascinating. So,
Yeah. I think that's so interesting. And the more opportunities we can provide for employees to get to know one another so that that can be created, because then you look forward to going to work because you look forward to hanging out with your bestie, right? So it doesn't seem as much of work. So I think the more that companies can provide opportunities for their employees to get to know one another, that can only create a stronger culture. The I care about you culture, you know? Um, and I think that the idea that others at the company are looking out for your best interests because I care about you. I think that's really important. Not just the company caring about the employees, but the employees themselves caring for each other.
to create an environment where that can emerge is awesome.
Mhm.
And that doesn't just happen. There's
No.
intentionality around that. What was the like how what there's a lot of science that goes into what translates into these well-being programs. Um, Maybe a little moment on the theoretical side. What of the sort of that education in the world of science and research, what kind of stuff interests you on that side of things?
I love the systems thinking, the behavior change theories. I really resonate with the social determinants of health and how those influence people's daily lives. And I think it goes one step further as not just your social and community determinants of health, but your company determinant of health, right? How are the companies set up to either help you thrive or not? So to me, kind of connecting the internal individual behavior change theories with the community public health theories of change, I think is a really important way to create a best practice because you can't make change just through the individuals and you can't make change necessarily just through the systems. They have to be integrated. So I guess that's kind of what those theories feed me in what I do.
Cool. I think you do have this love of learning. What's the world of well-being program conferences and get-togethers and uh, what's it like being in that world?
It's really great. It's always wonderful to go to conferences with like-minded individuals that are working within human resources or benefits or in positions like a wellness director to see what they're doing at their company and what's leading them. Is it, what is the why are they doing what they're doing for the company and the people that they work for and with? It's always really great because you can come up with some really cool ideas to take back to your own company. So that's really great. I do believe that in the making the circuit and working, through some of these conferences and talking with other individuals like myself, focusing less on programmatic changes, like, oh, we have this wellness program that people have to participate in, and focusing more on like when you walk in the door, is your environment healthy? I think that that's where I'm really excited to talk to other people in my space about and what they're doing. And so the conferences allow you to do that type of work, which is really great. And then bring it back to your company. I also really like opportunities. I'm participating in a conference in September called the Sea Change series or sessions. And it's an opportunity to bring individuals from different and a diverse population together, different points of view, perspectives, so that you can have potential conflict within the groups, but it challenges your way of thinking. And I think the more that we do that, where you're not necessarily with others that believe the same exact thing as you do, the more we can create change. Like I really do believe that the more we have a little bit of dissonance, the more we're going to create cohesiveness, which is I'm excited about. So I really like the idea of this conference coming up in September that I get to be a part of.
Are you one of the presenters, panelists, or is it this the participation in the thing is the
They have a whole health track this year at the sessions, and I'm a topic guide for worksite well-being.
cool? And is that like C like the letter C or C like that big body of water or C like I see?
I see. SEE.
Okay. Sea change. Cool, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Dissonance to what was
You can create
cohesiveness? Or
cohesiveness.
was that it? Cohesiveness? Nice. Yeah. 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 I was thinking about the strengths kind of like that too. Just like
Mm,
I'm imagining, like, let's put everything into buckets of well being or ill being. And then, like, let's say we solve all the ill being. I think the world's still going to be full of a lot of tension
mm,
because just with like the Gallup top five strengths, there's over 30 million permutations of top five strengths. There's like, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It sounds like it's one thing, but it's actually at least 30 million things for the pursuit of
Yeah.
happiness. Uh, and so I think even in a perfect world, there's still going to be a lot of tension because the way you experience that that you're living a good life best is so many different ways of that. It,
Mhm.
so dissonance, that's what that makes me think of. So yeah, yeah. I think
Well,
that yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's such a we kind of were talking about this before the show is just that idea of flexibility and staying flexible. I love that we're all coming to life at different places, right? That 30 million different ways to define happiness or define vitality or what have you. Um, but if we can remain flexible and open to how other people experience life, we can really make some, I think, collective change within our communities. And so for me, I guess I put that with that love of learning, that forgiveness piece that I have strengths in, because I do think it's really important to understand that no one path is the same. So, like for me in health and well-being, to the what we were talking about earlier, everyone has a different entry point. Everyone has a different journey and path, and we have to respect that path and journey. And if we do that, and we stay flexible and open to our way of thinking, we could learn how to maybe influence each other in a positive way. So I think that's really important too, and I think that piece of the strength puzzle is important to think about.
Yeah. Do you get to be in the world of practice and escape to the world of theory and back to the world of practice? And that's a cool cycle.
I love it. I do really enjoy being a practitioner of the theory.
And part of your path is literally being on paths out in nature as a runner.
Yes.
What's that like? Tell us well, maybe it's not running, maybe it is, but like, tell us about a favorite experience of being in nature when you felt most alive.
So I love to run, but I love running on trails probably the most. Living in a city like Charlotte, it's a little difficult to get out on trails all the time. But recently I did a 50K unsupportive trail run with a number of friends of mine in the mountains of North Carolina. We ran the Art Loeb Trail from start to finish. So 31 miles, a lot of elevation that we had to go up and then come down. But it was an entire day. I mean, it took us 12 hours, I want to say. So we were hiking slash running. But the opportunity was just amazing. One, being with other women out on the trail for 12 hours. Two, being disconnected from social media and from my computer for an entire 12 hours. Like we didn't have cell service, you're out there. And then moving through nature. I feel like movement is one of those things for me that's meditative, it's transcendent. And being able to do that in nature is where I flow. That's definitely, it was such a fun experience.
Thank you for sharing about that. Makes me want to get outside.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll
I
have to get my
encourage
20
that. 20
minutes.
minutes a day, y'all.
All right. So what would you like to see happening in the future, maybe like in the field and at the company?
Yeah, I think I've kind of expressed this a few times, but the idea of our environment being conducive to health and well-being. I used to, when I've worked as a consultant for companies in health and in the health and well-being space, and I used to say you've got to make health the easy choice. So the healthy choice should be the easy choice, and I continue to iterate that in as many ways as I can, in my current position and in my past, because I do think that if we can create environments and systems that are conducive to well-being, then it's not even something people have to think about. They just they just can be well, right? So I think that that's really important to me, is creating not a program for well-being, but a way of being.
Beautiful. That is cool. Okay, now we've talked about quite a bit of things. Um, is there anything else that we haven't talked about, or maybe something that we talked about before that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I like the idea that we talked about, the positive psychology, the piece of the connection with hope. I think so many of our employees and just, people across the country, that's such there's some lack there in bringing hope back into the workplace, but back into our communities and our relationships. That's one of those entry points, right? Where someone can feel that they're part of this hopeful future. And because of that, I take ownership. And because of that, I want to see my company thrive. I want to see myself thrive. And I have that idea of I am valuable. And I think if we can I just love that the work that you're doing, Nick, in the hope and the hope circles and the creating that community. And I think there's so much opportunity within companies to focus on that. So I'm actually excited about bringing that back to my company and being a little bit more intentional and purposeful around.
Thank you for mentioning that. I saw that was also one of your strengths on the VIA. And if you're playing along at home and have done the Gallup, I think that there's kind of if you're futuristic, that kind of points to that goals thinking dimension of this practical hope. And the strategic corresponds to the pathways part of that practical hope. And then in the VIA, it's just there. Hope. So and that's this idea that it's trait like in some people. These strengths have it's like deep down who you are, but then there's also this state like dimension. So as you're listening, uh, some of these things that we're talking about, you can find out more and cultivate it intentionally, even if you're not at present wired that way. With deliberate effort, a lot of these things can become part of core personality.
Yeah, and I love just kind of elaborating on that. As I think I mentioned before, I took the Clifton Strengths assessment a number of years ago, and I took the VIA just recently. And I do think that we might answer things differently at different points in our life. And just that idea of staying flexible with ourselves and not so static or concrete that, oh, this is how I am, and I'm never going to be able to be different. That's really constricting. And so allowing yourself to know that you can change and that this isn't the be all end all is really freeing for people. I enjoyed seeing my responses from 3 years ago. I got my Clifton Strengths back out before our conversation, and it was fun to look back through those. I still think they match me pretty well,
Mm.
However, it was really interesting to see some of the ones that came up on the VIA because I do think they're a little bit different than the Clifton strengths. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think the Clifton Strengths is great for like the boardroom. I'm seeing like
hmm,
they're all like they work for the workplace.
yeah, definitely more applicable. Yes.
And the VIA, it's like humor, appreciation of beauty and excellence.
Mm,
Those ones are maybe like you may not want to lead with that potentially, but I think that playfulness and beauty are kind of important dimensions of the life well lived overall.
I actually would flip that. If more companies led there,
Yeah.
right? What could we create? Right? If we
Yeah,
led
thank you.
less with strategic and more with gratitude, what would that look like, right?
Love it. One of the affiliates that I see you're a part of is 1% for the Planet. And shout out to Kate Williams over there. I got to have a conversation with her at a conference here in Lincoln that happens every year. Listeners, there's this Do More Good event annually, kind of a cool thing. Um, Kate shared her strengths are strategic, relator, learner, and connectedness. Just throwing that out there. Strengths of one of your partners. Is that what's it like at these conferences with other wellness coordinators? Is strengths like often a feature there, or is it sometimes, or where is this like strengths intersecting with that world
That's a
for
good
you?
question. I'm trying to think back through my experience at different conferences in the well-being space. If we've ever done like a strengths assessment prior to it and then been maybe grouped based on it. And I feel like I have had that experience maybe once at a conference, but it's not necessarily a norm, right? I would say that the norm is people gathering at different breakout sessions that resonate with them. And maybe that's possibly how you connect, and your strengths might be similar because you are, gravitating toward a certain topic. But that's typically what I see is more so in that way. Or maybe you're a wellness director, so you are coupled with other wellness directors as opposed to an HR or benefits, specialist or a CEO or that type of thing. But I think that would be a really interesting way to start a conference, and grouping people together based on strengths or overlapping people or connecting people based on different strengths. So like I said, the more I feel like the more diverse we can create a group, the more we're going to create from that group, right? If we have different minds of thought.
I'm picturing like a speed dating kind of thing,
Yeah,
except
that
like
would be fun.
like do one round one, like who is most like you, and then round two, who is least like you, or
Yes,
something like that. And then,
yes.
uh, yeah,
And give topics of discussion. I think a
some
lot of good
yeah,
good
yeah.
information would come from that.
So if people would like to find out more about what is happening from the world in which you operate, where
Yeah.
would you direct them?
We have a website for our well-being program at Atlantic Packaging. It's wellness.atlanticpkg.com. I would invite people to take a look. It's, kind of tracks everything that we're doing within our program. You can follow Atlantic Packaging on LinkedIn and Instagram. We share there quite a bit. We also have an initiative, like I was talking about before, in our sustainability efforts. It's called a New Earth Project. And so we have a LinkedIn and an Instagram handle for that, a New Earth Project. So that would be also a place that I would recommend you taking a look at.
Thank you, and thank you so much for being a guest. I hope we get to circle back at some point in the future and see what kinds of adventures we've had and do this again.
Yeah, thanks. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope that we can too.